Bize katıldığınız için teşekkür ederiz. Ekibimiz adına Yeşim Eroz Admittance Education. Bugün Türkiye'de çok sıklıkla duyduğumuz, özellikle üniversite turlarında çok konu edilen spor bursları, spor faaliyetleri üniversitelerde, biliyorsunuz Amerika'da daha çok konusunda mutlaka bir webinar yapmak istedik. Çünkü biliyorum burada bir bilgi eksikliği var. Bu konuda getirebileceğimiz ve kolabore ettiğimiz iş arkadaşımız, yani en çok güvendiğim dünyada bunu internasyonel olarak idrak eden Laurel Hensel, kendisi anlatacak. Yani her konuda gerçekten bir eksper. Onun için beraber sorularınızı cevaplayacağız, üstünden geçeceğiz. I'm transitioning over to Lauren. So
Yeah.
it's all
So
yours.
there's our wonderful pictures. I just want to say both Yesham and I are professional members of the IECA. As you know, Yesham works with international students, and I also work with international students and student athletes. I'm a former All-American volleyball player in the United States. I was a head men's and women's volleyball coach and an associate athletic director for recruitment and a director of athletic admissions at a university in Chicago. I lived overseas for a bit, and now I'm back in the US at Smart Love Family Services, serving as president, as well as the head of their futures division. So the first thing I want to talk about is, there's a lot of agents versus consultants, and you need to know the difference between the two, because they approach this process of going to university in America in very different ways. Agents are going to be focused on placing athletes, focusing on scholarship, and majority of the time they will speak for the athlete. While that may work for some students, I have seen that it does not work for a majority of them. What I mean by placing students is that the coaches, the agents that you're working with will speak to the coaches, say, can you give a student X amount of dollars? And the agent will then tell you this is where you should go because this is where you get the most athletic money. On the contrary, both Yesham and I, we work in a process of guiding student athletes, which means focusing on fit academically, athletically, socially, and emotionally. And we also support a healthy student athlete communication. So we want athletes to be taking the lead of where they want to go in America to play sports, because coaches want to hear from the students. They don't want to hear from the agents. And I love this quote by John Wooden. He was a basketball coach at UCLA and brought them to prominence. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. It's just a really good quote when approaching the recruiting process in the United States. You really have to be prepared to hear the word no. You have to be prepared to email coaches on a weekly basis as a student athlete. You need to be prepared to record film every week or every other week and upload it to YouTube and send it to coaches. You need to be prepared to really manage your time and balance it so you can achieve what you want to achieve.
Lauren, I have a quick question. I hate to interrupt.
Yeah,
What
no, you're
what
good.
you made is such a salient point. Can I just repeat that in Turkish? The difference
Yes,
between agent and okay.
I'll go back to the slide for you.
Okay. Because I want to make sure İngilizce tam olarak fazla hızlı geliyorsa çok o kadar önemli bir noktaya değindi ki onu gerçekten anlamanızı istiyorum. I'll go over this chart and the next one real quickly. Söylediği şey, agentlar var, consultantlar var. İkisi çok farklı şeyler. Agent komisyon alan demektir. Consultant agent değildir. Yani maalesef ikisini birden yapanlar da var. Burası Türkiye ama consultant aile için çalışıyor, aileye direction veriyor. Agent komisyonla sizi okula sokmaya çalışıyor ve okuldan para alıyor. Bunların ikisi çok farklı. Next chart over. Tamamen sizin için çalışan bir insan. Coachlar agentlarla konuşmak istemiyorlar genelde. Öğrenci ve ailesiyle angaja olmak istiyorlar. Yani ne zaman koçlarla, okullarla konuşsak bize söyledikleri bu. Lütfen agentları yollamayın buraya. Sizden para alıp da yani okuldan da para alıp da bizle konuşmaya çalışanları. Lütfen kendiniz bizimle irtibata geçin. Okay, all yours. I just translated it culturally and
Yeah,
in context.
perfect. Perfect. So these tend to be the three big myths versus truths that we see with students, particularly students who are outside of the United States, whether they are international students or they are Americans living overseas. There's this myth that every student athlete gets an athletic scholarship. The reality is only 2% of all athletes receive athletic scholarships. The latest data, there were just over 664,000 student athletes at the university level in the United States. Only 2% of them are receiving athletic scholarships. The second myth is coaches will find you if you are good. I hear this all the time when working with student athletes, like a coach should see me. I'm really good at my sport. That's not the reality unless you are an internationally ranked player who is a 5-star recruit. The vast majority of athletes will have to put in significant effort to get recruited. That is just the reality of where we're at. And coaches do not always have the biggest budgets, so they can't come to see you. You have to make yourself visible to them. The last one is you can wait till junior or senior year to start recruiting. I notice this happens a lot with agents is they'll say, you have time, wait, wait, wait. That is simply not true. To give yourself the best odds of being recruited, it's really important to start recruiting as early as freshman year, particularly for super competitive sports in America, such as American football, soccer, basketball, and volleyball. Those tend to be very, very competitive recruiting sports. So you need to start earlier rather than later. Here are some overall basics about university sports in the US. Most people assume that there are only the NCAA 3 divisions, when actually there are 6 different athletic associations that a school can be a part of, ranging from NCAA, NAIA, which is the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics, NJCAA, which is the National Junior College Association, CCCAA is that in California, NCCA is the Christian College, and then USCAA tends to be club level. There are 3 key elements to being eligible to play in America. A high school graduation that fits with a school's graduation requirements, your initial eligibility, and your amateurism certification. I want to clarify the amateurism. They want to ensure that students have not gone and played pro and then are coming to play at an amateur level at university in America. So if a student is on a pro team and has received, money for winning, it could affect their amateurism and they could lose eligibility. So it's something that you have to be very aware of. And then overall, there are 2,020 schools offering some sort of varsity athletic program at universities and colleges in America. Some additional basics. Athletic scholarships are only available at NCAA D1 and D2, NAIA, and some junior colleges, including California. Playing levels do overlap. So it's important for athletes to explore all levels. So you might have a soccer player that can play NCAA Division I, but they choose to go to a Division III school for a myriad of reasons, but they had the potential to play D1. So it's important to look at all levels. Another trend I'm seeing is ID or identification camps are growing in popularity for coaches. The reason for that, coaches do not have budgets to always fly all over the US or the world to see student athletes play. And so they actually invite students to come to their camps so they can evaluate them on site. And then lastly, I think it's just really important to acknowledge that coaches are busy and may not respond immediately. Too often I see student athletes overseas send one email, they haven't heard from the coach. They're like, I'm crossing the school off the list. The coach doesn't want me. That's simply not true. Coaches are busy. And a lot of times I've seen it takes anywhere between 6 to 8 emails to break through the email noise in a coach's inbox. So it's important to keep that in mind. I thought this is a good image of what level can I play at. So as you can see, Division I overlaps with Division II and III and the NAIA. And Division III overlaps with Division II and a good portion of the NAIA. So depending on what your level of ability is, you could have offers or potential fits across multiple athletic associations and divisions. And I do want to thank a colleague, college athletic advisor, who put together this really wonderful chart. I want to make sure that they get the credit they deserve. So this is a big one. Who do coaches want to hear from? The athlete. Okay. I've seen parents do the emails for students. I've seen agents are the ones speaking on behalf of students. The coaches do not want to hear from them first. They want to hear from the athlete because it shows that you are invested in the recruiting process. It's really important that students buy in to the recruiting process because they're the ones that have to show up to practice, strength and conditioning, film sessions. They're the ones that have to sit in class or miss class, travel with the team. Parents and agents do not.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
Sorry, I've heard, people approaching athletes, when they're practicing and just handing out their cards. Happens all the time, like athlete poaching in Turkey. It's just not healthy because that's not who they want to hear from. Is that's what you're saying, right? Yeah.
Exactly. They want to hear from the student. They want the student to be emailing them, the
Yeah.
student to be sending the film. Now, parents, you can absolutely help your child and your student athlete get the film and upload it to YouTube or put it in a Google Drive folder or help them make their resume. But the emails and initial phone calls should really be happening with the student.
Yeah.
Adults in their lives come in a later picture. And so who should not contact coaches immediately is parents, coaches, and family members. It really is important for the students to do the initial outreaches. Parents typically get brought in a few conversations in so they can meet the university coaches can meet the families. The university coaches may contact the students' coaches to get a feel for how they are. But it really shouldn't be the reverse. The student really needs to drive the process. And now, how should athletes contact coaches? I'm a firm believer that they need to be emailing coaches on a weekly basis. Even if a coach does not respond, you are putting forth the effort as a student athlete to make yourself known to the coach. We have to remember that only 5-star internationally recognized recruits are going to get noticed by coaches, especially those located overseas. Sending weekly emails is really important. Most universities have questionnaires, and a lot of times when coaches respond to an email, they'll say, please fill out our recruiting questionnaire. If you are serious about a school, you should not skip this process. The questionnaires allow coaches to see that you're highly interested. It allows them to gather more information about you and also puts you on a communication plan so you can get up-to-date information about upcoming recruiting clinics and summer camps and ID camps, as well as what's happening with the team. So it really helps you stay involved as an athlete with the school when you fill out a questionnaire. And lastly, if a student is interested in a program and they've been emailing and filling out questionnaires, they should be following that program on social media, whether that's on X or LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. Coaches do track if athletes are following them. They put them into an entire little recruiting database that tracks their movements and interactions with the program. So ensuring that your student athletes have clean social media accounts that they would be proud to show anyone or proud of a college coach to look at, make sure that they're following athletic programs and making sure that their own social media is really up to par. So then we get into this question of what are the best practices to secure a scholarship? I understand that going to university in America is not the most affordable at all times. And so we have to really understand how we can help secure a scholarship. And remember, Division III doesn't offer athletic scholarships. So how do you get a scholarship for Division III? Division II only offers partial athletic scholarships. So how do you maximize your scholarship dollars?
Um,
First and foremost, I think, Yeshem, you agree, keep strong grades, right?
very, very strong grades. I again, not to interrupt, I got a private message saying there are non-English speakers in the room. So when you make an
Yeah.
important point, just pause and I'll quickly
Yeah.
comment that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Very
Do you
important.
want to do you want to elaborate on the keeping strong grades?
Um, shall I do that in Turkish? Because you
Yeah,
already know how.
I think it would
Okay.
be best in Turkish.
Şimdi atletik bursla başvuruyorsak bile diyelim yüksek seviyede bir okula başvuruyoruz. Tamam mı? Notlarımız gene de önemli. Onlar olmadan ne kadar iyi bir atlet olursak olalım, seviyemiz ne olursa olsun bizi almayacak okullar olacak. Onun için bunların ikisini aslında tabii değişik nüanslarda, değişik division'a göre kuvvetli tutmamız gerekiyor. Onun için eğer atletik bir kabiliyetimiz varsa çok kolay geçirebiliriz lisemizi demek değildir bu. İkisine de önem vermemiz gerekiyor. Back to you.
Another important element is keep sending coaches updated film. Typically with agents, they will give you a highlight video that they say will get you recruited. Coaches will look at that highlight video, and 99% of the time, they want to see unedited game film. So they don't want to see a skills video. They want to see 5 to 10 minutes of a student playing without any cuts, without any special effects, maybe just an arrow pointing of where the student is at on the pitch or the court or in the pool. So it's really important to keep that film out to coaches. You don't want to go 2 months without sending updated film. You should really be aiming on a monthly basis to send coach new film. Coaches also, they love to give scholarships to students that they feel connected to and that they like. So I think it's so important to get on the phone with the coach as a student athlete, because then they can understand your personality more, whether that's on the phone or a virtual call. You want your student athlete to get on the phone with the coach. So when I have students send emails, I keep them really short, and I have them always say, Coach, I would love to schedule a 10-minute phone call with you. When are you available? And I have them put that at the bottom of almost every single email in some way, shape, or form, because then we're telling the coach, like, hey, I want to talk with you. Make time for me. Do you want to translate that at all?
Yeah, yeah, let's do that. These are really important points. Şimdi notların önemini konuştuk. Yani atlet bursu almaya yönelsek de bizim aslında doğru düzgün İngilizce standartize skorlarımız ve bir ortalamamız olması gerekiyor. Bunun haricinde film biliyorsunuz hepimiz klipler yapılacağını zaten okuduk, gördük, değil mi? YouTube'da örneklerini gördük. Lauren'ın söylediği şu. Edited bir skill videosu istemiyorlar. İstedikleri şey play video yani oyun sırasında diyelim bir voleybol maçı, basketbol maçı oyuncunun olduğu yere bir okla işaret eden çünkü koç bilemeyecek hangi öğrenciden bahsettiğimizi karışabilir kafası seyrederken ve bunların düzenli olarak yapılması gerekiyor çünkü gerçekten mizanseninde kontekstinde öğrencinin nasıl hareket ettiğini sporunda nasıl olduğunu görmek istiyorlar. Oldu mu? Üçüncü önemli nokta. Telefonla, WhatsApp'le tabii olacak. Mutlaka biz aslında koçla irtibatta olmalıyız. Çünkü koçlar yani günün sonunda aranızda bir münasebet olması gerekiyor. İşte Emre, hypothetically Türkiye'de nasıl bir insandır, nasıl neye güler, annesi babası ne yapar, neden hoşlanır? Yani bu koç bunları anladığı zaman bu öğrenci için daha iyi bir avukatlık yapabilecek okulunda burs alması açısından. Onun için aralarında mutlaka bir insan koneksiyonu olması gerekiyor. Onun için öğrencilerin yani Türkiye'de bu zor oluyor bazı aileler için ve öğrenciler için ama bu korkularını yenip koçlarla telefonda girişken bir şekilde konuşabiliyor olmaları lazım. Okay. Done all the way up to the end of the third point here.
Okay. So the next one to secure a good scholarship is the student should always be focusing on academic, athletic, and financial fit. And what I mean by that is make sure that the school offers the academic program and that your grades are in line with admission standards. Athletically, make sure you're at the right division level of play. Particularly, I see this in basketball. The average height of a basketball player, like this is a very basic measure. Average height of an NCAA Division I basketball player is 6'7" I've had student athletes who are 5'10" and are not playing on a national team, think they're going to play at UNC Chapel Hill. That is not a reality. Instead, that 5'10" athlete may be a better fit at a Division II school like Grand Valley State University or UNC Asheville. And then that financial component, you need to really look at and say, can my family afford the cost of this school if I don't get a scholarship? If I need a scholarship, I need to really adjust my expectations of where I can go and where I'm looking and what schools I'm aiming for. So focusing on those three elements makes the securing a scholarship for athletics more successful.
Shall I
And
translate
then,
to or?
yeah, go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Because this is hugely important. Şimdi kafanızda bir algoritma gibi düşünün. Akademik açıdan okula uygun olmamız gerekiyor. Bu ne demektir? Ben 1200 SAT'm varsa herhalde mesela çok yüksek seviyede bir okulda oynamayabilirim. Mesela 1304, 1350, 1400 gerekebilir, o okul 1560 da kabul ediyorsa. O tabii bir tek SAT'ye bakmıyorlar. Ben size örnek olarak söyledim. I just picked SAT as an example. Akademik açıdan ona yakın, orada perform edebilecek bir seviyede olmam lazım. İkincisi atletik seviyesi. O okul Division bir One okulu istiyorsam ve mesela Lauren'ın verdiği örnek baskette boyum kısaysa olmayacak. Onun için Division 2 bir okulu hedeflemem çok daha makul olabilir. Atletik açıdan da o okulun içinde bulunduğu Division'a uygun olmamız gerekiyor. Üçüncüsü burs almama ihtimalimiz her zaman var. Belki bizi okula kabul ederler, gelelim oynayalım, ama belki burs vermek için imkanları olmayabilir. Onun için diğer açılardan da financially bizim için finansal olarak uygun olan bir okulu aslında kafamızda hedeflemeliyiz. Yani tek boyutlu değil, daima iki üç boyutlu oluyor ve kompleks bir karar verme mekanizması ve seçme mekanizması söz konusu. Back over to you.
And then the last point is to stay in contact at all times. And what I mean by this is students need to make sure that they're responding to coaches within 48 hours, whether that's via email or WhatsApp or a phone call or a video call. I just spoke with a student athlete yesterday from outside the US, and instead of telling a coach, hey, I'm going to be working on changing my golf swing to improve it so my scores might not be as good in the short term, he was working with an agent that told him to just stop contacting coaches.
Ah,
And that's not the best practice. A coach would rather hear, wow, this student is letting me know they want to improve. They want to make their game better. I want to follow this student's journey. So it's important to always stay in contact, sharing big news and small news. I have students send weekly emails. It could be, this week I worked on dribbling and scoring better from a corner kick. And I did really well on my math test. And I'm super proud of it because I've been struggling with this concept. Coach, let me know when you have 10 minutes. I'd love to talk with you. Like that's an email. That's 1 week of an email. And if the coach responds, the student can respond right back. So it's just making sure that the lines of communication stay open and the student stays persistent. Do you want to translate?
I do, and right after that I'll translate a question, good question that
Yeah.
came through. Lauren'ın söylediği şey şu: koçlarla mutlaka münasebeti maintain etmeniz lazım, devam etmeniz gerekiyor. Utanıp da böyle geri çekilip sessiz durmak yok böyle bir aydan uzun bir süre. Neden? Mesela bir agent söylediğine göre golf swingini değiştirmiş olan bir öğrenciye sen şimdi hiçbir şey söyleme, onu değiştir, ondan sonra konuşursun tavsiyesinde bulunmuş. Bu çok hatalı. Yapması gereken, açık bir şekilde öğrencinin koç ben golf swingimi değiştiriyorum. Kısa müddette benim sonuçlarım etkilenebilir ama bu uzun uzun vadede benim için çok faydalı olacak. Buna ben yatırım yapıyorum. Bu arada işte matematik testimde çok iyi geçti diye böyle bir hoş bir sohbet içinde olması lazım. Aralarında bir raport olması lazım. Koçun kendisini öğrenciye yakın hissetmesi lazım. Onun için de bu münasebetin düzenli olarak devam etmesi lazım. Bir. Okay, here's the question we got. In individual sports, sometimes they're like a national athlete and they have times like in swimming or running. Do they require a video in that case if they have results to speak to the school's the student's performance?
That's a good question. I always think film is important. So students should always have film of themselves. With individual sports that are time-based, so swimming, track and field, I even think with some sports that are much more tangible based, like equestrian and fencing,
Mhm.
you can look at schools that your scores align with, and that narrows down the scope a lot, but still always have film because coaches, if they can't see you in person, they need to be able to see you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, a big question that comes up: how to be ethical. Okay. First and foremost, be honest about your ability. Okay. If you're not 6'7" and you're not playing on your national team for basketball, UNC Chapel Hill probably won't happen. We need to be honest. Second is know the recruiting rules for each division. Division one in the NCAA has much stricter recruiting rules in particular sports than others, whereas the NAIA and the junior colleges do not have very strict recruiting rules. So you do need to know those rules to understand why coaches might not be contacting you back and when you can actually go on a campus visit, because you don't want to break rules. As a student athlete, advocate for yourself. Do not let others speak for you. So if you're saying, I don't want to go to Alaska, I don't want to go to North Dakota, and an agent is telling you, well, that's where you should go because you have scholarship, the student athlete needs to advocate for themselves with the support of their family. Always follow up with coaches quickly. So don't just ghost them and not email them back if you're changing your golf swing. Like follow up with them, let them know what's going on, or they think you're not interested. And lastly, you should be working with ethical consultants, such as professional members in the IECA, like Yesham or myself, and there's quite a few others out there. You want to make sure you're working with people who can do this the right way so you have the best options as a student. Is there anything you want to translate, Yesham?
Yeah, there's a lot there. Ben kısaca üstünden geçeyim. Çoğunuz anlıyorsunuz galiba kazara anlamayan kimse varsa diye özet olarak yapıyorum. Kendimizi sunarken, kendi boyumuzu, atletik kabiliyetimizi artiküle ederken, e-maillerde veya konuşurken mutlaka çok transparan ve dürüst olmamız gerekiyor. Recruiting kurallarını anlayarak NCAA sitesini ve diğerlerini okuyarak hareket etmemiz gerekiyor. Ve mutlaka öğrencinin kendisinin maruzatını anlatması gerekiyor koça. Arada agentları, sizi recruit eden insanların maçta yanınıza yaklaşıp sizin için konuşmasına izin verdiğiniz zaman için koçların istediği o değil. Gerçekten öğrenciyle münasebeti devam ettirmek istiyorlar. Koç size bir şey tenezzül edip de yazdığında lütfen çabuklukla geri dönün, uzatmayın. Yani burası Amerika standartlarına, kurallarına göre yapılıyor. Onun için zınk diye geri dönmenizi beklerler. Profesyonellik de bunu gerektiriyor. En sonuncusu, şimdi biz etik açıdan sorgulanmayacak kurallara maruz bir association'ın dünyadaki en büyük üyeleriyiz Lauren'la. Ben Türkiye'de bizden başka galiba bir kişi var şu anda sadece. Lütfen dikkat edin, etik çalışan birisiyle çalışın. Kimle çalışıyorsanız eğer agent değil de bizim gibi bir eğitim danışmanı Lauren ya da ben gibi çalışıyorsanız lütfen hiçbir zaman komisyonla iş yapmayan ama onun haricinde sahte şeylere rağbet etmeyen insanlara öncelik verin. Size tavsiyelerimiz bunlar olabilir. Back to you.
This is just some general details to understand, and I'm not going to go into significant depth, but this presentation will be available. I'll make sure Yesham can send it out to all of you. This is typically what they look for international students. in terms of Division One, Division Two, Division Three for the NCAA, NAIA, and the NJCAA. So this is just so you can understand why a student might be admissible at a Division Two institution, but not at a Division One, or why they're admissible at NAIA, but not at Division Three. So this is just really good information. And you can also find this on the NCAA, NAIA, and NJCAA websites. So admissions requirements for student athletes. I tried to keep this simple. It will depend on the level of athletics and the rigor of the institution. So a D1 school like Stanford might have different internal requirements than D1 school like Illinois State University in Normal, Illinois. The rigor of the institutions are different, but the level of athletics are the same. So the admissions requirements will vary. An important one, and Yeshem, I think this should be translated, for Division III, you have to meet the same entry requirements as non-student athletes. Go ahead.
I can just do it up till here if you want.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Mesela onun verdiği örnekte Illinois'daki okul ve Stanford arasında atletik seviye iki okulda da. Örnek, misal. Aynı olsa da öğrencinin akademik seviyesi nerede oynayacağını tayin ediyor. Yani sadece çok iyi olduğumuz için basketbolda Stanford'a gidip oynamayacağız. Akademik açıdan da belli bir yerde olmamız gerekiyor. Onun için ikisi birden çok önemli aslında. Oldu mu? Birinci nokta o. İkincisi de Division 1, 2, 3 anlattı Lauren şimdiye kadar. Üçüncü Division'da okullara başvuracaksanız, o koçlarla münasebete geçip oradan bir offer almaya bakacaksanız mutlaka atlet olmayan öğrencilerle akademikman aynı seviyede olmanız gerekiyor. Tamam. Division 1'de o konuda müsamahalı davranabilecekler. Mesela bu sene oldu bu. Ama Division 3'te mesela başvuruyorsanız o okula zaten girebilecek bir akademik profilde olmanız gerekiyor. Back over to you.
Another important thing that when I work with students, I try to give them all of their transcripts with a rough estimate of their GPA, their athletic resume, and their school profile. I have them send a whole package with every single email to the coach, because then the coach has everything and you can ask the coach for a pre-read to determine your admissions to the university. Admissions will take the information in that packet and say the student athlete is either admissible or they're not, which cleans up your recruiting process. Yeah. And lastly, you should always be focusing on schools where you fall within admissions requirements. Because if you are aiming for a school that's too difficult to get into and your profile does not match, yeah, you most likely are not going to receive a good pre-read. Whereas if you are above admission requirements, you will have a much more positive pre-read from admissions.
Belli bir konuşmanızın, prosesin belli bir aşamasına geldiğinizde coach'tan, coach, transkriptlerim, test neticelerim, yaptığım şey burada. Yani akademik olarak benim profilim budur. Buyur değer dediğinizde coach admission office'e, kabul ofisine gidip bu öğrenci bu okula gelebilir mi, gelemez mi diye sorup onlardan araştırmalarını ve bakmalarını istiyor. Ve size dönüp neticesini söyleyebiliyor. Bu sayede mesela belirli bir uzunluktaysa listeniz onu indirmeniz mümkün. Çünkü belli bir okul yok. Hayır, hiç deneme lütfen, gerekmez. Yani atletik olarak bu seviyede olsan da burada yapamayacağını düşünüyoruz falan derse o zaman hiç olmazsa bilirsiniz önceden. Onun için daha akademikman halledebileceğiniz ve fit ettiğiniz okullara odaklanırsanız sizin de işiniz kolaylaşır. Çocuklar için söylüyorum, öğrenciler için. Back over to you.
So as test scores are starting to come back at some institutions, coaches may request SAT or ACT scores. A good measure is the higher the test score, you can typically have a slightly lower GPA. If you have a lower test score, you will typically need a higher GPA. This is just a sample that was taken from the NCAA and the NAIA. So as you can see, we'll just use like this Division I as an example. If you have a 3.550 GPA, then you only need a 400 on the SAT. However, that will not get you into Stanford. And so it is important to understand that this is a good guide, but each admissions office at their schools has their own internal scale of what they can accept.
Mhm.
Do you want to translate that?
Yeah, just a quick question for you though, just for my
Yeah.
clarification, because 400 is like I don't know that
Yes.
exists. I've still
I
also
know.
never seen as like 750 probably.
Yes.
I have actually
Yes.
seen that. Okay. Web sitelerinde Division 1, 2, 1, 2 diye bu şekilde böyle sliding scale size direkt söylüyorlar. Bakın mesela ortalamamız tabii biz 4 üstünden bu biz 100 üstünden aldığımız için ona göre düşüreceğiz. Önemli değil o tercüme ediliyor. Neyse ortalamamız ne kadar yüksek olursa SAT'miz aslında biraz daha düşük olabiliyor. Ama okulda iyi bir öğrenci değilsek ortalamamız biraz daha düşükse daha yüksek bir SAT beklerler. Ama tabii mesela bir gidip de Stanford'da oynamak istersek eğer sporumuzu çok daha farklı beklentiler olacak. Onun için bu da herkes için değil. Onu da belirtmek istedi size. Okay.
And then at the very end here, before we get into questions, I've included some of the basic resources. So these are all the eligibility sites for the NCAA, the NAIA. The NJCAA does not have an eligibility because it is done through each junior college. Same with California community colleges. I typically have students when they are, unless they are only going to junior college to play, I have them register with both the NCAA and the NAIA and put those numbers on their athletic resume. So I just think it's so important for them to keep all of their options open. So make sure that your child and your student athletes register for both the NCAA and the NAIA to maximize their opportunities. And now we can open it to questions.
Thank you. That was amazing.
And there's no silly question. There's
Yeah.
only good questions.
And you can ask them in Turkish, right? Türkçe de sorabilirsiniz
Yes.
sorularınızı veyahut da yazabilirsiniz. Biz tercüme ederiz. Peki beklemediği bir şey duyan oldu mu? Anybody heard anything they were surprised with? Cem, Fırat, Utku, did you want to just ask? Go ahead. You don't need to raise a hand. You can just talk.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this great presentation. I'll try to ask my question in English. I hope I'll do it. Let's assume there is a student with super GPA, super SAT, and that student also is very good in sports. And that student requires, actually the parents really prefer to have scholarship based on academic success.
Mhm.
And is that a case for the student to have a support sourcing by his or her supportive success to be accepted by the university? Am I clear about the question or not? I'm not really sure. Like if
So the family wants, they're looking at an academic scholarship,
Yeah.
but the
yeah,
student also wants to play a sport, correct?
Yeah.
uh, yeah, that student's GPA or academic success is higher than that student's sportive success. Let me say it that way.
Okay.
It's not a problem.
So
But there
that
are
student,
schools that student can still go to that are like competitive with academics,
Yeah.
but maybe they're not as competitive with sports, but they still have sports programs.
Yeah.
A perfect example, honestly, is MIT is a very strong, obviously, academic school, but you don't hear about MIT like reigning Division I volleyball. They're a Division III program. They're like in the middle. They're average success. But you can find schools that have, the rigor academically, and then that match the students' athletic ability. There are those schools that you can find.
Mhm. Does that sound good?
okay.
So another question.
Yeah, Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you so much. I got it.
Another question came in. They've asked it privately. So I'm just going to translate. They're wondering if you have to be on a national team to get a scholarship, and the answer is, of course, no. I just want to say that out loud. Over to you, Lauren.
No, you do not need to be on a national team to get a scholarship, but you have to work much harder to be noticed by coaches, and you have to set your expectations along the lines of, if I'm not on the Turkish national team for basketball, I'm not playing at UNC Chapel Hill or UCLA for basketball. That's the reality of it. Instead, you have to adjust which schools you're looking at that you can compete at athletically. So you don't need to be on a national team. I worked with a French American student um, who was a soccer player, female soccer player. And in France, they only play on a half field until women turn 18 years old. So she was passed over recruiting by Division II schools, which is really the sweet level where she belonged. So she went to a junior college for 2 years and is now transferring to either Division II or a highly ranked Division III school for athletics. And so there is that route as well. Students can start at a junior college, grow their academic and athletic ability, and then transfer into a 4-year school.
It's such a good idea. Well done on that.
Yeah.
Good question. So, sorunuzu cevaplayabildik değil mi? Başka? Ee,
I have a question.
yeah.
Hi to everybody.
Hello.
Which sports are highly competitive? Do you have any scale measuring most competitive sports or less competitive sports? I mean, in terms of acceptance or recruitment rate?
So men's basketball is super competitive. You have students, since America is a big source of talent for basketball. For recruiting, you're looking at students being recruited as early as freshman year for men's basketball. Same with men's or American football is recruited, as early as freshman year. Women's volleyball is also very competitive with recruitment, as well as soccer. Those tend to be the most highly competitive sports. So starting earlier is always better. More individualized sports, it's important to start early, but just because fencing is typically found at more elite or more selective institutions. So you should start early so you can do the right academic prep and you can find your right academic fit and athletic fit. Same with equestrian and dressage, things like that. And then sports where there might be an overabundance, but not enough teams. So one that comes to mind is men's swimming and diving. Unfortunately, more schools are cutting men's swimming and diving programs. And so with less programs, they get more competitive just because there's not enough roster spots.
And this stuff changes over time. Like during COVID, we went through a dip and then, yeah. Yani zamanla da değişiyor bunlar birazcık.
Yeah. Good question.
Yeah.
It's a really good question.
But we also love basic questions. Yani çok basit şeyler de sorabilirsiniz. Aranızda çok bilgili veliler var gördüğünüz gibi ama siz çok basit şeyleri de sorun. Hazır sırasıdır. Hangi şehirlerdensiniz onu da merak ediyorum aslında. Herkes İstanbul, Amerika'dan da var görüyorum.
Ankara.
Ankara. I'll just ask what cities they're from also. Ankara. Hoş geldiniz. Başka şehirlerimiz var mı?
İzmir'den geliyoruz.
Oh, bravo. İzmir.
İstanbul.
Hoş geldiniz.
İstanbul.
İstanbul. Okay. Süper.
I really appreciate everybody coming and meeting for this webinar. It's so impressive to see so many of you here wanting to get really quality information.
I mean, you can ask other questions. We have a little time, but I also want you to know you can always contact us or Lauren. Maybe should we go back to?
I can put my contact information
you want,
on the last slide.
Yeah. Admit Lauren tamamen spora odaklı. Beraber de çalıştığımız oluyor, öğrencilerimiz oluyor. İstediğiniz gibi bizimle irtibat kurabilirsiniz daha detaylı bilgi isterseniz. Hani de bizimkini de ekleyelim istiyorsan. Yani beraber çalışıyoruz. Sadece evet aynen.
Ekledim.
Okay. Good. And Lauren da ekledi. Perfect. Teşekkürler. Thank you, Lauren. Teşekkürler, Lauren. Evet, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Right. I mean,
Thank you all for your attention.
little bit of time if people want to I can just stop recording, and if anybody wants to stay for just a couple minutes with any questions, if they feel more comfortable, we can take it off share screen. That's perfect. Is that okay? All right, I'll
Yeah.
just take it off recording.